Hi, I'm James Miller, the online ministry specialist at Pine Island United Methodist Church in Pine Island, Minnesota. We're so glad you found this video. If you'd like to see them all, make sure you click subscribe so you don't miss a single one.
Welcome. It's great to have you with us. We are so glad that you found this video. I am Tony Fink, the pastor appointed to serve the Pine Island, Minnesota area for the United Methodist Church.
And I'm James Miller. I'm the online ministry specialist at Pine Island United Methodist Church.
During Lent, we will be traveling with Jesus as he makes his way to Jerusalem on his final trip there. This is the trip that leads to his death on the cross. And along the way, we will look at some life-changing encounters he has with four people. This morning, in this week's video, we will prepare ourselves for this journey of Lent as we remember how Jesus prepared himself for his ministry after his baptism. Now, this is something that we call our Worship Highlights video. This is a shorter version of our worship experience here in Pine Island. If you want the complete worship service, it's available on our website. That's at piumc.org.
And we are so glad that you've connected with us. If you'd like to say hi to us, please do so. Just click Contact Us at the top of that webpage. Or if you find us on Facebook, you can just click the like button to let us know you're with us. Speaking of Facebook, that's where we host our digital campus. You'll find the link on the website Pastor Tony just mentioned, and you'll also find there a standing invitation to our Wednesday night digital coffee house at 6 o'clock Central Time.
Yeah, and if you're ever in Pine Island, Minnesota, we'd love to have you join us. You can find our address, even directions to the church on our website. On Sunday mornings, we gather for worship inside in the sanctuary at 9 o'clock. And then at 10:30, we head out to the parking lot for a worship service out there. Between the two worship services, we have Sunday school for children and youth. And there's also a coffee fellowship at 10 o'clock for everyone who's here in person.
And if you ever join us in time for the live stream, or even if you just catch us at the end of the hour, we invite you to join us for a digital coffee fellowship on Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. Central Time. And we thank you again for joining us for the shorter version of our worship experience.
Yeah, and friends, it is our hope and it is our prayer that you will be blessed by this week's worship experience.
Thank you, Chris. Oh, Chris, there's a Tootsie Roll waiting up here for you. Didn't Chris do a great job last week? Yeah, he did. Yeah. Speaking of last Sunday, as is our tradition in the church, on the Sunday before Lent begins, we heard about Jesus' transfiguration on the mountaintop. We heard, while Peter was still speaking, look, a bright cloud overshadowed them. A voice from the cloud said, "This is my Son, whom I dearly love. I am very pleased with him. Listen to him." Well, just before today's lesson starts, Jesus is baptized. And this is what we hear from the baptism story. When Jesus was baptized, he immediately came up out of the water. Heaven was opened to him, and he saw the Spirit of God coming down like a dove and resting on him. A voice from heaven said, "This is my Son, whom I dearly love. I find happiness in him." Do you see the theme there? The voice from the cloud? But then, the next verse, we hear this after the baptism. Then the Spirit led Jesus up into the wilderness so the devil might tempt him. After Jesus had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was starving. So do you see what's happening here in today's story? The same Holy Spirit that comes upon Jesus at his baptism is the same Spirit that leads Jesus into the wilderness for the story of these three temptations. This gets Jesus prepared for his earthly ministry. This year, like every year, on the first Sunday of Lent, we hear the temptation story of Jesus. But this year, let's go back a couple days. Okay? I'll get you again next year, okay? But this year, I want to talk about Ash Wednesday because I missed being with you Ash Wednesday. Did we have an Ash Wednesday service in person? No, there was this like huge storm that came in, right? And I really missed being with you. You know, because in the service, there's this tender moment as people come forward and I place ashes on you. And I say, remember that you were dust, and to dust you shall return. And we consider our mortality, the fact that we're not going to live forever in this body, okay? And as we do that, we consider the things that are most important in our lives. Now, I do not endorse hazing in colleges, okay? Countless young people have lost their life. Far more have been traumatized by college hazing, okay? College hazing is illegal in most states, okay? So do you understand my viewpoint on college hazing? Do you understand my viewpoint? Yes. Okay. With that said, did you ever hear how college hazing got its start? I learned that American college hazing started in the mid-1800s, and it's a really interesting story. You see, if you go back to the mid-1800s, go back to that time in American history, young men had fought and served and witnessed death and even came close to their own death in what war? The Civil War, right? It involved so many people of our nation. And by these experiences, it changed them in many ways. And one of the ways that this changed them, a positive way, is that they found out what were the most important things in their lives. When they came back with wisdom beyond their years, and they knew their priorities from that point on for the rest of their lives. I think of my son David. He went over to Iraq with his first tour, okay, after 9/11. And after his first tour, he came back about 40 years older in terms of wisdom. Okay? My son, who is younger than me, in some ways seemed a whole lot older than me. War can change you. It can help you realize things you never thought about before. And I thought about David's experience when he went back to the University of Minnesota. One of his comments is, these kids seem so young. They don't know what's important. Okay? Let's go back to the mid-1800s. Okay, those Civil War veterans, some of them went back to college. Okay? And in college, they became fraternity brothers with other men who had not gone to war, men who did not have their heads screwed on straight, men who never considered what was most important in life. So these Civil War veterans thought up ways in which these other young men could experience the fear of death but not die. Okay? They put them in situations where they would consider the deeper meaning of life in the face of death. And I'm going to stop here, except to tell you that those things that they did, they were not silly pranks. Okay? They did not involve alcohol poisoning. Okay? Look in the history books and you can figure out what they did to them. Okay? I'm not going to go into that. But I do talk about this because it brings us to Ash Wednesday. Okay? Now, don't equate Ash Wednesday services to college hazing. Okay? Although it might depend on the quality and the length of the sermon at that service. Okay? But we're not going to go there right now. Okay? Ash Wednesday. Oh, by the way, that's for those of you at home, that was a joke. There was uproarious laughter in the sanctuary, right? What does that uproarious laughter sound like? Yeah, thank you. Okay. Length of sermons. Okay. Yeah, back to Ash Wednesday. Ash Wednesday, it's an important service each year because it invites us to consider our priorities, to think about those things as we receive ashes on our foreheads or on the back of our hands, as I say, remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Now, George Kinder is a financial planner, and he's known for asking the big three questions. A couple of you here have heard these questions before, but they're important questions. So George Kinder's questions are these. Assume that you have all the money that you need. Maybe not Warren Buffett money, okay, but you'll never have to worry about money again. Does that sound freeing? Never having to worry about paying bills? Okay? So the question is this: what would you do with it? How would you live if money was no object? Okay? Take some time to think. If you need to, just write something on your bulletin. How would you live your life if money was of no concern? You could do anything. First question. Second question is this. You go to the doctor who discovers that you have a rare illness. The doctor says you're going to feel perfectly fine for the next 5 years, but then the illness will prove fatal. It will come suddenly, causing death, but won't be any suffering. Okay? So here's this question. Now that you know that your life will be over in just 5 years, how will you live it? Okay? What will you do for the next 5 years knowing that that's all that you have? Okay? And you can live doing anything, but you only have 5 years to do it. Is it your same life or are there changes? So consider that. Again, I invite you, if you want to write it down, just to make a jot, okay? That was the second question. The third question is this. You go to the doctor. You feel perfectly healthy. But again, the doctor explains that you have a serious illness. But this time, the doctor says you only have 24 hours to live. Okay, I could see some of those sighs. You only have 24 hours to live. So here's the question: what did you miss? What did you not get to do that you wanted to do? Who did you not get to be who you wanted to be? Think about those things. And as you consider those three questions, your answers to them, here's another question. How might you live your life differently during these 40 days of Lent? Okay? Because think about it. You got this free 40-day trial, okay? But it's not for a streaming service or a mattress. No. It's a chance to live your life in a new way for 6 weeks. And then after 6 weeks, when Easter comes, to see if you like the person that you're becoming. Okay? In today's story, Jesus prepared to begin his ministry. And as he prepared himself, he discovered that he needed to let go of some things. He needed to let go of having his earthly hungers to be fed immediately. Okay? He also learned that he had to let go of having to prove to others that he was the Son of God. Think about how Jesus' ministry would be different if at the drop of a hat he would say, "I'm the Son of God," and prove it to people. Whole different story. And Jesus also learned that he had to move away from taking the easy way of giving salvation to the world by bowing down to someone else than God. Remember how Jesus did it, right? On the cross. You know, in the temptation story, in some versions it says, and the devil departed him until an opportune time, right? Remember that? When was that next opportune time? The Garden of Gethsemane. Remember that? Jesus had the choice to go to the cross or not. We're told in some versions that he could have called 10,000 angels. He could have been saved. He could have taken the easy way. But how did that prayer end in the garden? Not my will, but thy will be done. So those are the things that Jesus had to deal with, those temptations that he had to move out of the way before he could begin his earthly ministry. So as we prepare to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus on Easter, as we get ready to understand the mystery of what Jesus had already done for us on the cross, what he's already done for you with the empty tomb. But what practices, what disciplines will we participate in to help us come closer to Jesus these next 40 days? What can we do? Could it be something to help us come closer to God? How about making a commitment to make it to worship every Sunday for the rest of Lent? Okay? You've already got one down, right? So you just have 5 more to go. Okay? How easy could that be? Or maybe making the commitment to do daily devotions each day until Easter. Okay? Those upper room devotionals, they're on the back table. Okay? I got one to take you to the rest of this month. Okay? But to do a daily devotion each day for 40 days. Or maybe it might be being part of a Bible study. Okay? We just happen to have a Lenten Bible study starting. So could it be something to help you come closer to God, a new practice or discipline? Or maybe it could be something to help you come closer to other people, okay, to be closer to our neighbor. Maybe it might be reaching out to a longtime friend who we haven't talked to in a long time. Okay, each week, just think about, boy, who haven't I talked to for a while? That was part of my life, and maybe give them a call or stop by for coffee or something. Or it could be being kind to a different stranger each day. Imagine during Lent of going to bed at night and thinking back over the day and saying, oh yeah, I was nice to a new person who I didn't know. For those of you keeping score on your Wesleyan scorecard, those are acts of compassion. But maybe an act of justice. It might be praying to have your eyes open to some injustice in our community. Okay? Just the prayer to have your eyes open. Because, the cards are not always dealt equally. Okay? So just asking to see where the cards not being dealt equally. And then trying to do something about it. An act of justice. That's something we could do to help us come closer to our neighbors. So closer to God, closer to neighbors. We're talking about getting prepared for Lent. Getting prepared for Easter. Oh. Thomas Bickerton, he is our president of the Council of Bishops. Okay? Do United Methodists, they have popes? Say no. No. It's in the tradition, our Catholic brothers and sisters do, but our pope is probably as close as we get, is the president of this worldwide Council of Bishops. Okay? And Bishop Bickerton, well, he wrote a letter to us last week. Did you guys get the letter? Well, I forwarded it on to you. Okay? You can go back. It's on the web page, or not the web page, but it's on the Facebook page. I'll give you a copy if you really want one. Okay? But in his letter to us on Ash Wednesday, Bishop Bickerton tells us that as we begin Lent, this is a time to pray that God will create within us a clean heart and a renewed spirit. Okay, I'm not going to read the whole letter to you, but a couple of things popped out at me. Okay? He also wrote, let's breathe out any focus on ourselves and breathe in a deep desire to renew our mission to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. Let's renew our commitment to reach out to all who need the saving grace and love of Jesus with joy and enthusiasm. Does that sound like a good thing to do during Lent? I think it does. Another part, he writes, it's time to move from division and focus on the unity of the beloved community given to us by our loving God. It's time to move from a rhetoric that tears down and focus on the life-giving gospel of Jesus Christ. Wouldn't that be great ways to live for 40 days? So the question is for us, how will we use this 40-day trial period to do something different, to bring us closer to Jesus, to bring us closer to the people that Jesus died to save? In these next 40 days, how will you live out this God-given gift of abundant eternal life? And then, after 40 days, if you don't like the person that you're becoming, you can stop. When Sunday comes after Easter breakfast, you go, thank God that's done. I'm tired of being nice. Go back to being grouchy and angry, okay? But you can go back to the way that you were before if you don't like the person that you're becoming. That's the beauty of Lent. You can try it on. If it doesn't fit, you can let it go after 40 days. But try it for 40 days, not just one. Ivy Sellers, some of you I think know Ivy. Years ago, decades ago, Ivy said, you know what? I've discovered in my life that it takes 40 to make a habit. A bad habit or a good habit. If you do something 40 times in a row, then it becomes a habit in your life. So think about that. Oh, this also comes with a word of warning, okay? And some advice. When you start this new discipline or this new practice, don't do it to impress others. Don't do it to appear holier than anyone else. Tex Sample is one of our United Methodist leaders. There'll be a picture coming up in just a moment here. There he is. He's a United Methodist leader. He's a theologian, a big name for some of us at United Methodist. And this week, Tex told a story about his uncle. I love this story. He writes, my uncle was a bootlegger in my hometown in the late 1940s and 50s. He wore $300 suits, a 10-gallon Stetson hat, and Italian shoes. The roll of money in his front right pocket was so big that he had his pockets custom made to a company that excess of greenbacks. Okay? He goes on, when he infrequently attended church, he set up a front. Okay? He stood his cowboy hat down with the label up, and he eagerly awaited the offering. During the collection, he pulled out that big roll of money, holding it about shoulder high, and drew out a $20 bill. Okay? Now, back then in the 40s, was $20 a lot of money? Yeah. So then he takes that $20 bill, he folds it lengthwise, and then he spears it into the collection plate as it goes by. Can you envision that? Tex writes, it was an impressive performance. He goes on to say, some people were critical of my uncle. Imagine that in church. But he says, some people were critical of my uncle. But I remember one saint in the church who thought he fit in rather well with the pretensions of any number of the other members of the congregation. It seemed to her that the distinction between authentic piety and just plain showing off exposed plenty of blame to go around. She seemed to think that the main difference between my uncle and some others in the congregation was just that they hid it better. Okay? So don't show off. When you start this new discipline or practice, don't do it to impress others. Don't do it to appear to be holier than anyone else. Again, every year on Ash Wednesday, that's the message that Jesus brings to us in the gospel reading. Beware of practicing your piety before others. So, again, here's the question. If you knew that you only had 40 days in which to live the rest of your life, how would you live it? Would you make a change? Or would you keep on living the same way? What change would you make? What do you want or what do you need to prepare to become closer to Jesus? To prepare to become closer to people here on earth? Now, in these next Sundays during Lent, we're going to be hearing about some life-changing encounters that Jesus had with 4 people. Okay? Jesus had the last of these encounters as he journeyed his final time to Jerusalem. As he journeyed his final time to the cross. And something that we've discovered is that this journey of Lent is a walk that you can only walk for yourselves. No one can do it for you. But if it seems lonely, remember this: Jesus walked this journey before you did. Yeah. Jesus walked this lonesome valley. He had to walk it by himself. So as you prepare to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus, as you get ready to understand the mystery of what Jesus has already done for you on the cross and with the empty tomb, what practices, what disciplines will you participate in to help you come closer to Jesus? And when you do this discipline or practice, don't do it to impress others. We do it to come closer to God. Well, what do you think, Joel? Is there a song that talks about walking this valley? There just happens to be. So let's sing together, Jesus walked this lonesome valley, but let's think about our journey to Lent this year too.
Jesus walked this lonesome valley. He had to walk it by himself. Oh, nobody else could walk it for him. He had to walk it by himself. We must walk this lonesome valley. We have to walk it by ourselves. Oh, nobody else can walk it for us. We have to walk it by ourselves. You must go and stand your trial. You have to stand it by yourself. Oh, nobody else can stand it for you. You have to stand it by yourself.
Our dismissal and blessing comes from Romans 5 today. Let's hear Paul's words. Though we were judged and condemned, we have found pardon. Though death held dominion over our lives, God's grace and gift of righteousness now lives and reigns within us. We are free. We are forgiven. We are alive in Christ. Go in peace. Serve the Lord. Thanks be to God.